Wealth does not begin in the wallet. It begins in the mind. Long before money appears in your life, certain invisible signs show up first. These signs are not accidental. They are proof that your thinking has shifted from wishing to achieving, from hoping to knowing, from drifting to directing your life with purpose. Clarity of purpose is the first and strongest sign that you are on the path to wealth, because a person who knows exactly what they want is no longer ruled by confusion. When desire becomes definite, the mind stops wandering and begins selecting. You start to notice opportunities that were always present but invisible to the unfocused eye. Instead of reacting to life, you begin directing it. Your thoughts gather around a single aim, and every decision starts asking one question: does this move me closer to what I seek or farther away from it? This mental order creates power, because scattered energy produces weak results, but concentrated energy produces movement. With clear purpose, doubt loses much of its authority. You may still feel fear, but it no longer controls your choices. You understand that uncertainty is natural at the beginning of any worthwhile pursuit, yet you refuse to let it define your direction. Purpose becomes a stabilizing force when circumstances change. When setbacks appear, you do not interpret them as signs to quit, but as signals to refine your approach. Your goal remains fixed even when your methods must change. This steadiness is what separates the dreamer from the builder. Clarity of purpose also changes how you use time. Hours that were once wasted now feel too valuable to lose. You begin to plan your days instead of drifting through them. You start protecting your attention from distractions that do not serve your aim. Entertainment becomes selective, conversations become intentional, and your environment slowly reshapes itself around your direction. Without announcing it, your lifestyle begins to reflect your ambition. Another result of clear purpose is the development of inner confidence. You no longer measure yourself by other people's progress, because your destination is personal and specific. Comparison fades when direction is strong. You recognize that speed is not as important as consistency, and that your only true competition is your former self. Each small improvement becomes proof that movement is taking place, and this proof strengthens belief. Belief then influences action, and action produces evidence that reinforces belief again. Clarity of purpose also sharpens your judgment. You become better at saying no, not because you are uninterested in life, but because you are interested in something precise. You understand that every yes to what does not matter is a no to what does. This discipline does not feel like sacrifice. It feels like loyalty to your future. Your goal becomes a filter through which all options pass. As purpose grows clearer, your mind becomes more receptive to ideas connected to it. Books, people, and experiences begin appearing relevant to your direction. It feels as though life is cooperating, but in reality, your awareness has changed. You have trained yourself to look for solutions instead of excuses, and for progress instead of comfort. What once seemed complicated now feels manageable because the destination is known. Clarity of purpose is not loud. It does not demand applause. It works quietly, shaping habits, guiding choices, and forming character. It removes the need to explain yourself to everyone because your actions speak through consistency. When purpose is fixed, energy stops leaking into worry and starts flowing into creation. The mind stops asking if it can be done and starts asking how to do it. And once the how becomes more important than the if, movement becomes natural, effort becomes focused, and direction becomes identity. Faith in your own ability is a silent force that reshapes the way you see yourself and the world around you. It is not built from applause or approval, but from an inner agreement that you are capable of learning, growing, and achieving what you decide to pursue. This faith does not demand that you already possess every skill. It only requires that you believe you can develop them. Once this belief takes root, hesitation weakens and initiative strengthens. You begin acting with the assumption that success is not reserved for a chosen few, but available to those who prepare their minds to receive it. When faith in yourself becomes steady, fear no longer appears as a stop sign, but as a signal of growth. Challenges feel less like threats and more like training. Instead of asking whether you will fail, you ask what you can learn. This shift changes effort from something forced into something natural. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start improving imperfect ones. Confidence does not mean the absence of doubt, it means the refusal to surrender to it. You recognize that doubt is a temporary emotion, while belief is a chosen saint. Aid of mind, this inner faith influences the tone of your thoughts. Self-criticism gives way to self-direction. You speak to yourself in a language of instruction instead of insult. Each mistake becomes information instead of evidence of weakness. This mental habit builds emotional strength because the mind learns to recover quickly from disappointment. The stronger this habit becomes, the faster you return to action after difficulty. Persistence grows because quitting no longer feels logical when belief is present. Faith in your own ability also changes how others respond to you. People may not understand your vision, but they sense your certainty. They trust direction when it is carried with calm conviction. You begin attracting cooperation instead of resistance, not through force, but through clarity. Opportunities appear where effort meets belief because initiative opens doors that doubt keeps closed. Your confidence becomes a signal that you are ready to receive responsibility and capable of handling it. This faith improves decision-making. You stop postponing choices out of fear of being wrong and start choosing based on what aligns with your purpose. You accept that not every decision will be perfect, but every decision will move you forward. Progress replaces paralysis. The habit of action replaces the habit of excuse. Over time, the results of these actions strengthen belief further, creating a cycle where faith and achievement support each other. As belief deepens, dependence on outside validation weakens. Praise becomes appreciated but not required. Criticism becomes information instead of injury. You understand that opinions do not define potential, and that history is filled with individuals who were doubted before they were proven. This understanding creates emotional independence. You become steady in praise and calm in resistance. Faith in your own ability also develops patience. You stop demanding instant results and start respecting gradual growth. You see effort as an investment rather than a burden. Each step taken with belief feels meaningful, even when progress is not visible. You trust the process because you trust yourself. And when trust in yourself is strong, discipline becomes easier, courage becomes familiar, and the mind stays focused on creation rather than comparison. Discipline over impulse is the turning point where desire becomes control and intention becomes behavior. It is the moment when a person stops being ruled by moods and begins to be guided by purpose. Impulse seeks comfort. Discipline seeks results. When discipline takes charge, actions are no longer random responses to emotion, but deliberate steps toward a chosen aim. This change does not happen through force alone, but through understanding that every small decision carries a future with it. Each time you resist what is easy and choose what is useful, you strengthen the part of the mind that leads instead of follows. Impulse promises quick relief, but discipline promises lasting gain. The mind begins to see beyond the present moment and measure choices by their consequences. Instead of asking what feels good now, you ask what will matter later. This habit reshapes character. It teaches the body to obey the mind and the mind to respect its own commitments. When discipline becomes routine, effort loses its bitterness and begins to feel like self-respect. You no longer act because you feel like it. You act because you decided to. This control of impulse affects time more than anything else. Hours once lost to distraction are redirected toward improvement. You become aware that time is not only passing, but accumulating. Each disciplined hour adds strength to your future position. You stop borrowing from tomorrow to satisfy today. Rest becomes intentional, work becomes structured, and leisure becomes balanced instead of excessive. The mind learns that freedom does not come from doing whatever it wants, but from mastering what it chooses. Discipline also protects ambition from exhaustion. Without it, desire burns brightly for a moment and fades. With it, desire becomes steady and reliable. You continue when motivation weakens because commitment has taken its place. This steadiness builds trust in yourself. You know that when you set a plan, you will follow it. This trust becomes a form of confidence deeper than excitement. It is the confidence that comes from keeping your own promises. Impulse seeks escape from discomfort, but discipline learns from it. When difficulty appears, you do not immediately retreat. You stay long enough to gain strength from resistance. Struggle becomes training instead of punishment. The mind stops seeing effort as suffering and begins seeing it as shaping. Every repeated act of control makes the next act easier. What once felt heavy becomes familiar. What once required force becomes habit. Choosing discipline over impulse also changes emotional reactions. You stop allowing anger, fear, or pleasure to decide your direction. Feelings are observed instead of obeyed. This does not make you company. LD, it makes you stable. Stability creates reliability, and reliability attracts responsibility. Others begin to see you as someone who can be counted on because your behavior is not unpredictable. This reputation grows quietly but powerfully. As discipline strengthens, impulse loses its authority. You still feel temptation, but it no longer commands action. Desire becomes guided instead of wild. You begin shaping your days with intention rather than surrendering them to circumstance. In this control, you discover a form of independence that does not rely on luck or approval. The mind becomes organized, the habits become aligned, and the effort becomes consistent. And consistency builds momentum, and momentum builds results. And results confirm the value of control over comfort. Persistence through obstacles is the proof that desire has matured into commitment. Anyone can move forward when conditions are easy, but only persistence keeps direction alive when resistance appears. Obstacles are not signs of misdirection, they are tests of depth. When the path becomes difficult, the undedicated turn back, but the persistent adjust their steps and continue. This ability to remain engaged with a goal despite discomfort separates temporary effort from lasting pursuit. The mind begins to understand that delay is not denial, and that struggle is not rejection, but instruction. Persistence changes the way failure is interpreted. Instead of seeing it as an ending, you begin to see it as a message. Each setback carries information about what to improve, what to refine, and what to strengthen. The lesson becomes more valuable than the loss. This shift protects motivation from collapse. When disappointment appears, it no longer destroys direction, it reshapes strategy. You remain connected to your aim while modifying your approach. In this way, persistence creates flexibility without surrender. This quality also builds emotional endurance. You become less sensitive to frustration and more focused on progress. Difficult moments no longer provoke panic but invite problem solving. You stay present with the challenge instead of escaping from it. Over time, the mind grows familiar with resistance and stops reacting to it as a threat. Hardship becomes part of the process rather than an interruption of it. This acceptance removes much of its power. Persistence strengthens identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who does not quit when effort is required. This self-image shapes future behavior. When new challenges arise, you approach them with the memory of survival instead of the fear of defeat. Each time you remain standing after difficulty, you collect evidence of your own durability. This evidence becomes confidence, and this confidence fuels further persistence. Obstacles also clarify priorities. They reveal how deeply you want what you claim to desire. When the cost rises, excuses become visible. You either withdraw or commit more fully. In this decision, character is formed. The persistent do not deny the difficulty. They decide that the purpose is greater than the pain. This comparison between meaning and discomfort gives direction its strength. You stop asking how to avoid struggle and start asking how to outgrow it. Persistence reshapes patience. You learn to work without immediate reward. Effort becomes an investment rather than a demand. You understand that results have seasons and that progress does not always announce itself. This awareness keeps you steady when nothing seems to be changing. You continue planting even when the soil looks empty. You trust the unseen process because experience has taught you that growth is often hidden before it is visible. Through persistence, you also become less dependent on inspiration. Action no longer waits for perfect emotion. You move forward even when enthusiasm is low because direction is clear. This consistency builds rhythm. Work becomes routine instead of reaction. The mind accepts effort as normal and challenge as expected. In this state, quitting feels unnatural and continuation feels logical. As persistence becomes habit, obstacles lose their drama. They remain difficult, but they are no longer surprising. You meet them with preparation instead of protest. You stop asking why the road is hard and start asking how to walk it better. Each problem becomes a step instead of a wall. Each delay becomes a lesson instead of a loss. And in this steady movement through resistance, purpose stays alive, effort stays organized, and the will remains active even when conditions refuse to cooperate. Value through service is the understanding that wealth follows usefulness and that reward is the result of contribution. When a person shifts attention from what they can take to what they can give, their position in life changes. The mind begins searching for ways to solve problems instead of ways to avoid effort. This change in focus creates opportunity because every need in the world is an opening for value. The more clearly you see what others require, the more precisely you can shape what you offer. Service is not weakness, it is leverage. It places you where demand and ability meet. When service becomes a guiding principle, work takes on a new meaning. It is no longer only a way to earn, but a way to influence. You begin asking how your actions improve conditions for others. This question sharpens skill and deepens purpose. You stop performing tasks mechanically and start performing them intentionally. Quality becomes a form of respect. Each improvement in your effort becomes an increase in your worth. The market responds not to wishes but to usefulness. And usefulness is measured by the relief you bring, the results you create, and the reliability you show. Service also changes attitude toward competition. Instead of fearing others, you concentrate on becoming more valuable. You understand that the best position is not taken by force but earned through relevance. When you focus on contribution, comparison loses power. Your growth becomes tied to improvement rather than rivalry. This direction builds long-term stability because it is based on development instead of defense. You invest in learning because knowledge increases your capacity to serve. You invest in character because trust increases your capacity to be chosen. Another effect of service is the creation of connection. People respond to those who help them progress. Influence grows naturally when effort is directed toward benefit. Relationships form around reliability and integrity. When your presence improves situations, your absence is noticed. This is how reputation is built, not through claims, but through consistency. Over time, this reputation attracts responsibility, and responsibility attracts reward. Compensation is simply the measurement of how much good you have made possible. Service also refines ambition. You no longer seek wealth as an escape, but as an extension of your value. Money becomes a signal rather than a symbol. It reflects how many lives you have touched, how many problems you have addressed, how much order you have created. This view protects ambition from selfishness and guides it toward usefulness. Desire becomes tied to impact. The question shifts from how much can I gain to how much can I improve. As service deepens, patience increases. You accept that value grows through effort and time. You build instead of rush. You improve instead of advertise. The mind learns to respect process because results depend on preparation. Each act of service becomes a deposit into future position. Even when recognition is slow, purpose remains because contribution is happening. The sense of meaning protects motivation when reward is delayed. Service also strengthens discipline. When you see your work as helpful, commitment becomes easier. You show up not only for yourself, but for those who depend on your effort. Responsibility grows heavier, but direction grows clearer. The will becomes trained through usefulness. You develop pride in doing what matters instead of what is easy. In this state, effort feels justified and struggle feels necessary. Value through service aligns desire with demand and effort with reward. It places the individual in harmony with exchange. You become a producer instead of a spectator. Your thinking moves outward instead of inward. You observe the world with the intention to improve it in some way. From this perspective, opportunity is not hunted but recognized. The mind becomes alert to needs, the hands become skilled at solutions, and the character becomes shaped by contribution. Through service, purpose gains direction, ambition gains balance, and work gains meaning, and the pursuit of wealth becomes a natural outcome of making yourself useful in a world that rewards usefulness.